And I hand over to Harry.
Thanks, Andrew. And thanks, Przemek. You just put me out of job. So, first thing I want to say is those of you who are hungry, this is the last session before lunch. So happy days. Those of you who are cold outside, it's Black Friday tomorrow. Get your deals in. Those of you who are cold inside, look to the person next to you, give them a hug, because they're cold too. Right. So we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss real estate trends. I'm going to be joined shortly by James and Monica from Knight Frank. Those of you who don't know who Knight Frank are, they are the world's largest international property advisory firm, and they've been around for 125 years plus. So without further ado, James and Monica, I'd like to welcome you to the stage.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Thanks a lot for invitation. I'm happy to be here. I'm Monika Słodecka-Karaś. I'm from Knight Frank with 24 years of experience helping within Knight Frank companies like you in the office leasing strategy. And together with me is James.
Hello everyone, James Bartolo. I head up multi-market tenant rep for Europe, Middle East and Africa at Knight Frank. Been in the company in nearly 10 years now. I've seen the death of the office twice in my career. I'm sure it will come again in a few years' time, and we'll talk about that soon, but thank you for having us.
And at the beginning, you have the Mentimeters 3 questions for you, and we'll come back to those questions during our presentation. What multi-location means for you? Could you answer somehow? What a silence here. Diversity, thank you. Follow the sun, thanks. Different cities, great. Backup, super. Cost reduction, yes, we will be talking about this.
I was hoping that word in the middle would be nice and big, so that's
Flexibility.
following a theme.
A lot of them and a lot of different answers. Thanks a lot. Quality, talent, yes. The office closer to the people. 81 responses. Thanks a lot. This is a hot topic, I can see. Okay, thank you. Can we ask about the second question? It is connected to our survey. James will tell you more about that. But could you answer your 3 years plan? Shrinking, extension, keep the same.
I'm watching it in real time.
Yeah. So please, James, could you remember what was the answer? Let's come back to... Okay, 2020 and 910. Who is shrinking as well? Okay, and the last one. Do you like your signage on the roof in Kraków? This is not a global trend. This is my question. Thank you.
This was designed to be divisive, so that worked.
Yeah, because our presentation will be about global trends, but the last one I was asked to present you the office market in Kraków very shortly in 1 minute, but I would like to touch this topic as well. Okay, 14. Okay, thanks a lot for this. So I'm not here to tell you how your business work, rather to start and to do the intro to my presentation. And the results of this slide will connect with HSBC's summary, actually. So I'm happy to share it as well. I'm starting with the article from The Economist from January 2023, and they has checked jobs in 3 sectors, particularly connected with the remote work. So it was technology, finance, and professional services. And they found that such a jobs has become far more distributed across America since the pandemic. And what was important that big metropolitan areas have lost out to smaller cities. If you remember HSBC presentation, it was on the summary slide as well. So this is actually the same result. And since the last quarter of 2019, the number of jobs in those 3 sectors has grown by 6% more than in smaller cities than in San Francisco and New York. And actually, it gave a view on the jobs migration as well. Yeah. So exports of commercial services, as you know, to the 6 large emerging markets has grown, and all those aspects are connected with the office space, but mainly to the strategy connected to your office space. And for today, we can divide the strategy into 3 groups. It means the first one is hub and spoke model and multi-location. It was my first question on Mentimeter today. What does it mean? It means that the company has one headquarter and satellite offices. It could be in serviced office, it could be co-work. We have a lot of examples even in Poland, ABB, EPAM or others. Yeah, they are doing this. The last example I have in Poland was Apply Poland. This is an engineering company. They are existing in Krakow for many, many years, I think 10 years. And during the pandemic, they recognized that a lot of the engineers, their staff living in Silesia. So they decided to open the office in Katowice. And after 1 year on the very good results of the recruitment process, we have a phone call, and Ivona from Katowice was the next job to do. Please make it bigger. Yeah, because the engineers coming to the office every day. So the second type is workplace, something inside of your office, or the arrangement of your office inside. So even in this room, there are some of our clients who is trying to check how the office inside could be changed totally, functionally, because the headcount is growing. They will keep the same amount of square meters, but due to the fact they are working hybrid, they need to remodel the office inside. And the third, of course, as always, this is something which is mixed of the rest. So a lot of companies has a lot of offices across the world, and even if you have, let's say, like Jacobs, more than 300 offices in the world, this is no chance to set up the same size, the same functionality inside the office in each of the place in the world, even due to the fact of the cultural differences. And there's one example of this.
Yeah, I think the key is that one size doesn't fit all at all for global real estate now. So, we talk about this mixed approach to office space. It was great seeing Rakesh's slide. He's still got offices dotted all over the world, which is great because some people have decided actually we're going to rein that back in and shrink our portfolio. I think what you cannot do nowadays is just create a glass box and expect people to come in and use it. It has to have a pull, it has to have a hook, you have to have amenity, flexibility, all these things you hear about every single day. But this one at the bottom, I mean, we did we call it the great unplanned workplace experiment that COVID put onto us. But some people were doing hybrid before COVID even started, right? Your organizations probably had hybrid working in some way, shape or form, even if there was no policy around it. We worked with an offshore drilling company in 2020. They decided to come to the market and say, we need someone to help us. I think they had about 15 offices. So not a huge portfolio, but they had some very large offices being involved in oil and gas. A huge office in Norway, for example, that had about 40 people assigned to it, but far too much space. So they came to us and said, how can we, first they said, what case studies do we have about what other companies are doing? This was in, I think, May 2020, not many case studies yet, as you can imagine. But they wanted to really understand how can we adapt for the future. So it's about trying to understand the cultural differences and the needs of those spaces to create real estate which can help people, which can work.
Okay, and now after introduction, we have just 4 examples from our Your Space last report, because we've done a great large research. Could you explain?
So Your Space is our flagship Knight Frank occupier research report. We're in our 3rd iteration now. We did 2018, we did 2021, and now in 2023. The survey capture has doubled each time, which is great. So we were up to just over 640 we were this time. I don't think we'll be at 1,200 next time, but maybe. But these are all people who are responsible for real estate and the occupier side. No landlords, no investors. We care what they think, but not really. But this was about surveying them and understanding what does real estate mean to them, and what trends will come.
Yeah, I'm just skipping some kind of introduction. So we've checked by our survey how the most important factors have changed. So, James.
Absolutely. If we put all 3 on the screen, that should be the most helpful. So what we did is we put some themes in and we asked our participants to rank them. And what I find really, really interesting is the continuity that you have here. So the session this morning, which was absolutely brilliant, talked a lot about talent and attraction. And we still have talent and attraction and retention at the top theme about what real estate can do for you as a company. What I think has changed is that increased collaboration. I'm sure you're all talking about a collaboration space in your offices, getting people into the office, into a space to collaborate rather than being at home behind their screens. Cost management, we know about. Everyone has cost management risks when it comes to your real estate portfolio. I think the one which is really missing here, in 2018, it was ranked in 10th, ESG, particularly the economic side. For our 2023 rendition, it was number 6. I'm sure if we did that survey again today, I'd be very surprised if it's not in the top 3, because that environmental impact of your real estate, your carbon negative and neutral targets you have as a company, real estate has a huge factor in that. But there's good consistency here, which is great.
Mm-hmm. And the question was actually, how do you plan to change? How do you plan to change the amount of square meters in your portfolio? And you can see some of the results on the left-hand side. But what is very interesting here, this is according to your Mentimeter's answer. And increasing here means more space for collaboration. Increasing means for the companies to grow their portfolio, to have more satellite office, let me say. And today, coming back to Krakow, I can see 3 groups, of course, of companies. Those who are increasing the space mainly because they are opening new offices, so newcomers as well. The second group who stay where they are and with the same square meters. And of course, there are some of companies who are shrinking the space by 10%, 2 of them 50%. And here, actually, this is the answer. What is the driver of relocation? And maybe the chair is in a not very good place, but the cost savings. If you remember the first PwC presentation, let me check my notes. Yeah, in PwC presentation, I've noted that 44% of GBS will be expected to increase cost cutting. So please see what's here, cost savings, 46%. Next one, change of work style, but influencing quality of space required. Then quantum space required. Then business transformation, restructurization, functional obsolescence of existing building. And actually here there's access, here, this is access to the different talent pools. Don't worry. Okay.
I think just to cover that slide very quickly, what it shows is it's that glass box effect again, right? People think that come back to the office is now just we need collaboration space everywhere, but actually you need to have that me space as well, places where people can come just to work. The office is no longer a place for someone to come and administer email, is what we would say, what we used to do years ago. Come in, sit, focus, do your emails, go home. It's about collaboration, but you also need to offer that ability, talking about talent again, for people to come in and work and use the office as a space to work as well as collaborate. Now, I talked about the fact there was hybrid before COVID. These are some statistics since COVID about reoccupancy rates. Now, these are quite broad strokes, but they give you an idea. The US, so far behind. It's quite amazing, particularly on the West Coast. I don't know if anyone's been to San Francisco recently. It's such a different place compared to if you were there in 2018, 2019, because the world has changed so much. Asia has really gone back to pre-COVID levels. Everyone is back in the office, but that was a cultural thing. It's about culture. Whereas when we come to kind of Eastern Europe, more occupancy, Western Europe still a little bit behind. But that's because we've had this change in culture, and companies, business leaders like yourselves, saying we need to adapt in order to make this work. If we move forward, please, Monica.
Yeah, and for the Aspire tracker, what we have 26% actually occupancy in Krakow among your companies. More complex work style, but more office-centric. And this is not surprise for me, please. How do you describe your organization's work style in 3 years from now? Other, remote, office only, 7.8, flexible, nearly 10%, office first, 23%, and 56% hybrid. So this is actually what you are doing, what we expected to be answered, for today.
And I think again to that, the office is dead. You see from here, there's only about 15% of respondents that don't have something which involves office-centric in some way, whether that's office first, hybrid, or a flexible model.
And in terms of the hybrid, this is important. Your decision, your strategy is important. If hybrid means for individuals or hybrid means for teams, and this may have an impact on the size of your office space, of course. Then some examples from
Some
JP.
examples. So anecdotes are always great. Put it into practice. So what we have here is 3 different columns. You can't see the bottom. The first one says flexible, but with required office presence in some form. So from these ones on the left, the tech titans were the first ones who said, we can be remote, we can work anywhere. Everyone who worked for Facebook moved to Nebraska because that's what they were allowed to do. Meta, the top one there. Mark Zuckerberg even came out this week talking about collaboration and how important that is and having offices to do that. So both Facebook, or Meta as they are now, and Google, now having some form of required office presence. My favorite one in the middle, Lyft, big competitor to Uber. They went wholly remote during the post-pandemic. Said no offices, we don't need them anymore. They now have turned around and said, we have just 3 offices, but you all have a 3-day-a-week required presence in those offices, and you're recruited near to those offices. Really big statement for someone who went wholly remote. Some names you would recognize from the slides earlier. TCS is another good one. They've gone back to 3 days stipulated in the office. And then on the far side, you have kind of the financial services. We're always going to go this way. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs made statements really early post-pandemic. You will come back to the office. And this has now moved forward to 4, and some of them are even up to 5 days a week now, just to show that trend is, it's not the same for everyone. One size doesn't fit all, but it's just to show some of them moving. If we go to the next slide, please. So again, some of those anecdotes. I won't talk about them all, but you saw the example of Meta. Nike, really, really interesting. So Nike are now up to 4 days per week, mandated from the 1st of January 2024. It's a really, really big statement. When we talked earlier about talent retention, attracting talent, they have had to have done a lot of research to be able to make this statement because of the potential impact it could have on their talent. I'll move to the side because there's a lot of people taking pictures of the slide. But yeah, what does this tell us? This tells us that some really big decisions being made. A lot of companies have been scared. They're going to nail their colors to the mast and say, you will. But I think we're starting to see that shift from employee-led now to employer-led about what does the office mean for the company and how is it being used.
Okay, thank you.
Some more examples. So I talked about TCS was a great example. They were fully hybrid. They ended that 1st of October, now back 3 days a week in the office. So yeah, you can see some of these statements on the left. 8 out of 10 executives regret their return to office plans because they went too soon. They made that big statement, and they lost people because of it. They lost money because of it. 64% of global CEOs believe their staff will be back working in the office 5 days a week in the next 5 years. I'm not sure I agree with that. I'm in the real estate world. I don't go to the office 5 days a week. I'm one of those people who likes my Fridays at home. Shock. 5 days a week, I think, is still a push, and it has to be culturally led. That's the most important thing. That slide we had with the percentages around the world. You cannot turn around to every country and say it, but what this shows is, let's talk about case studies at the start. We're still not there with the perfect case study of return to the office and what does it mean. Hybrid is evolving and it will continue to evolve.
Okay, and this is the last one. So we're trying to squeeze our presentation because we know you are before the lunch. So the office market in Krakow very shortly. Those data comes from the third quarter 2023. If some of you would like to read entire report, please, on our website, knightfrank.com, you can get it. We didn't print it them. So actually we have in Krakow quite nice stock and not nice vacancy rate. It means the vacancy rate is quite high. Yesterday we even calculate, thank you Maciek again, calculate how many square meters we need to add to this, because those vacancy rates showing us the empty space in the existing buildings, not those buildings under construction. And on the top of that, you need to add sublease market. So some of you in the room has more space than needed. You put it on the market, and we sum up it yesterday, and this is around 33,000 square meters in the city. So it means around another 2% of vacant office space. Supply under construction, not a lot of new buildings under construction for today. For some of you, I will share those informations later on, why not? Take up. So there are your decisions to sign new lease agreement or renegotiation of your lease agreement, 122,000 square meters. And the surprise is new supply, not so huge. But this is something which is natural on the market, especially when the developers seen the highest cost of the construction of the building and the fit out. You can feel it when you are now negotiating the deals. What is the price per square meter for the fit out? For today, it starts from 500 euro per square meter, and the sky is the limit. So I can see some kind of cost calculation per 800 euro per square meter, 900 euro per square meter as well. The last graphs. So this is the different presentation that we have from HSBC. We have only 3 of them. New supply, as you can see at the bottom, in 2023 we will have some supply, but in 2024 could be a gap in supply. When we calculate yesterday in 6 to 7 projects which had the building permit, can give us another 100,000 square meters. They didn't start. So if they start, we will have 100,000 square meters in 2025 or 2026. But we are waiting if those developers decided to start the construction. Take up, this is your reaction, what to do. And the take up includes renegotiation, all your annexes to the lease agreements as well. And here the very, very straightforward information. Vacancy rate is high. It means this is a good position to renegotiate your lease agreements now. In the opposite of the 2015, when the newcomers who would like to let 1,000 square meters has 2 options. So the market should be healthy, and the market is healthy when the vacancy rate in the Krakow scale is around 10%, not 18%, because this is not healthy for both parties for sure. And of course, we didn't even touch the topic of ESG, which is important due to the limited time, but we don't want to keep you here before the lunch. And the last thing I would like to mention is, of course, your signage of the roof, because I promised to touch this topic in one sentence, that we know that the Kraków is divided into zones. And the different rule applies for placing business identification, so your signage outside. And what is important, then the entity, so it means landlord or tenant, actually placing the logo is responsible for its compliance with the landscape resolution. So if according to your lease agreement, you as a tenant place the signboard on your own, you are taking the responsibility and eventually penalty. So just take care of that. Think about your signage on the roof, but everything will be okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a Q&A session. All right, where we will come to you, because we're going to have a Q&A session. Before we do that, I'd like to invite to the stage Magdalena from American Express and Jacek from Motorola Solutions, please. So both Jacek and Magda come from two different sides of the spectrum in terms of how they operate, office, hybrid, working from home. But I'll invite Magda to introduce herself first.
How about now? Okay, now it works. Well, good afternoon already to everyone. My name is Magdalena Weiner, and I'm the director of HR Hub EMEA for American Express Global Business Travel. And I am here to represent this 3.7, which was on the previous presentation, of companies that work fully remote. And I am here, I don't think that maybe I will convince you today how amazingly that works, but we are actually a live example that it can work very well, and it can bring incredible benefits. We had a similar conversation on one of the center heads call in Aspire. I think it was in June or July. So I can say the same things that I said back then. Nothing changed, if only then for the better. So it's still on, it works, and it's, I think, from my experience and how that evolves, it works even better. Thank you. Have your own.
So welcome everybody. Jacek Drabik, trying to represent Motorola business in the country. 2 locations, Krakow and Warsaw, 2 legal entities for right now in Poland for 30 years and in Krakow for 25. Actually, we are in a completely different situation comparing to my neighbor from the right side. We made completely different decisions starting in April in 2022, so over a year ago. We decided at that time that we are going to go fully flexible. I specifically emphasize word flexible because hybrid is also only a part of the flexibility. And the flexibility is in 2 directions. First one, in a hybrid sense, which means that people can choose if they work from home or if they work from the office. And in a second direction is because we have different decisions and different functions at the sites, which means that we have few % of people that are working 100% from home. We have few % of the people that are working 100% from the office, and the rest is just choosing the way how they want to work. We were in a, I would say, lucky situation because we had zero push from the corporate about the global decision. We were simply told, we trust you, we know how you work, and the decision can be made locally, how we want, what do you want to decide, and how do you want to work. And so it was full trust on the corporate side, how we want to move forward. And by the way, exactly the same is for Motorola globally. So we decided to work in such a mode because I think it was a will from both sides. From the company, we had a strong feeling that it's going to work perfectly well for us. And there was also a strong will from the employees' perspective to work in such a mode. I think, honestly saying, when I go back right now to 2020, when COVID exploded, my feeling is that we would be exactly in the same situation today without COVID in 5 years from now. In my opinion, this style of work that is happening right now would happen inevitably without even COVID. It would take probably more time, but we would be exactly in the same situation as we are right now with COVID, on the way. Because that's in my opinion, how the style of work would evolve in the next years. One of the proofs for my judgment is that when COVID exploded, and I'm admitting it openly, I was the person who would say it's absolutely impossible in our company to move in 1 week to 100% from our home without any problems. I would say it's a science fiction. But that's exactly what happened. We moved pretty much with 98% of the people to work from home without any impact on business, without any impact on quality, without any impact on productivity. Why? Because somehow the company was simply, not magically, but was prepared already for that style of work without even saying it openly. That was a natural development of all the digital tools, of our systems, etc., etc. So it was extremely smooth for us, which means that in 5 years, we would be even more prepared for such a style of work that we decided to do. One more comment, if it's working well for us. We just gave up 30% of our space. So out of 5 buildings, we are staying in 3, and that is going to be a stable base for us. Every single day, without any policies, without any regulations, without any number of days mandatory, we have between 55 to 60% of the seats busy, up to 80% in the peaks, depending on the day, depending on the situation. I think it's because we are on both sides, which means the company and employees understood that everything is simply changing and can be adopted. Which means that the decision that we did April 2022, hybrid work, and right now hybrid work, it's already a different story. Simply, we are modifying the hybrid definition because company is modifying it, but also we are modifying it because our employees are modifying it. They are coming to us and saying, for instance, it's extremely difficult to introduce new employees to the company if you are online. So please, company, from now on, introduction of the employees only 100% on site. Employee request. The second example, very recently they came back to us and said, we would like all the trainings and all the workshops related to leaders and managers be 100% on site. Because this is nightmare for trainers, this is nightmare for employees. We would like to change the definition of the hybrid in that moment. Another example, we rebuilt the space, I think, 2 times from the COVID, preparing it for our feeling of work. We felt at the beginning that we need much more space, so-called social, for people, to meet, to talk, to have a chat, etc. After a year, they came back to us and said, you build for us, for instance, meeting rooms with the amphi style. People can talk and present, etc. It doesn't work for us. We don't use it. We need normal meeting rooms with tables, with chairs, for the team to sit down, discuss, and agree and make a decision. And we are changing it right now. Another example, interns. We have interns on board. I know, I'm coming back to the end. Just my recent thought. They came back to us and said, we would like all the interns, which are young people in general, to work with the teams on site 100% because it's good for the company and for us. My last sentence. Why is all that? Why is finally the decision? I think we are talking about multiple benefits for the company and multiple benefits for the employees. Medical care, etc., etc. But I think right now one of the most important benefits for the company and one of the most important benefits for the people is time. And the decision that we made is exactly based on benefit, which is a time for company and for employees. Sorry for that.
Thank you. I want to open up the floor for questions, and Ian, I saw you first.
Well, I'm particularly interested in the notion of data, and I can understand that the resolution of your data for a real estate company means a job is a job is a job. But as you were saying, from the perspective of the company that's hiring the space, they must have a much more complex distinction between what types of jobs need to be there 100% of the time and what percentage of the jobs need to be there 0% of the time. And so you've got two lots of data, and the real estate data doesn't help the people who are actually buying your real estate, because they have to go through the whole process and decide how much, they have to recategorize the jobs. And within each category, they can decide how much is going to be at home and how much is going to be in the office.
I think you're absolutely right. So I made that point of you can't just create a glass box and expect people to come and work in it, right? That's the main thing you take away from all of this. Real estate needs to be a function, and it needs to be a tool that you use in order to be as productive and collaborative and effectively as effective as possible. Now, the data that we have is collected from real estate leads who are trying to crack this code, right? But I think to Jacek's point, to go too far to one extreme, you'd end up having to build back and build back and build back. I've got clients who are now putting banks of desk back into offices where they took it out and created big collaborative space. So there is no one size fits all, absolutely. But you have to work, there has to be that collaboration between the business, all the business leaders, the landlords as well, having that flexible product in buildings as well, for example, using flex as a way of growing and shrinking, and project-based working, I think has become more and more important. But yeah, I mean, there's no cracking the code, Ian, is the simple answer.
Thanks for the question and thanks for the answer. I know there's more questions on the floor. I'm getting a time check from Andrew. But everyone here is available. They're going to be here the whole day. However, there is one question that a lot of people have already asked in anticipation of Magda being here. And so I'm going to ask it as the last question. And that is, if you're 100% remote, how can you collaborate? How can you get teams together? How can you function?
Differently. But it doesn't mean that it's impossible. What you need is just to shift your mindset that the usual meetings in the room, things that we were having for years, this is not the only way. There is always another way. And I was talking to a friend today, comparing this mind shift to the moment when you change a phone, right, to a new model or to a new company. And then it takes you some time to get used to it, right? But when you are used to it, when you are using it in your new way, you completely forgot that you used to have another phone that worked differently. You are just so much into this new way of doing that it becomes natural, it becomes yours. So of course we had this challenge, and we still have this challenge on some occasions, that it would be actually easier to get in a room and discuss it. But for this kind of special meetings, let's say, which really require brainstorming and exchange of ideas, we still can do this, but it's even better because we are not actually tied to the office, that we have to go to the office and do this in the office. We can do this anywhere. So, for example, my last quarterly meeting with my managers, which was supposed to give us this opportunity to exchange in person, we had in an orphanage next to Kraków in the mountains. So it allowed us to meet in a completely different setting, do something good, by the way, do something good for us, do something good for them. It wouldn't be possible if we would be still having an office. We would just go to a conference room. So you can still do a lot of things using all the digital tools that we have now at our disposal, and they can really work. If you get used to them, you switch your mindset, you can find yourself collaborating as easily as in old-fashioned ways, let's say.
Brilliant, thank you. So I think I'll probably go back to James's point, which is, I think, the takeaway from this is it's not one size fits all. It's different for everyone, right? It's different on the work you're doing, the sector you're in, your client requirements. So I'm going to end on that note, and as I said, everyone on stage is available. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Knight Frank.
Harry, can I just say one last thing? I just wanted to say that despite all the COVID changes, we are still in this minority of 3.7 or 3.4. But please remember that actually every minority has a potential to become majority. And look at the Christians, for example, and Christianity. They were not given a lot of chances at the beginning, right? But then the world changes and shifts. And I strongly believe that this is the future. And this is the direction of travel.
Fingers crossed.
Brilliant, thank you. So thank you guys, really appreciate it, and thank you for the questions. I'm going to hand back over to Andrew, but please can everyone give a warm round of applause to everyone on stage. Thank you.